All right, the third episode of the Apple TV Plus British espionage thriller Slow Horses is arriving. So is the show picking up steam or is it petering out? So this is going to have minor spoilers from episode 1 and 2, but I'll be discussing some spoilers for episode 3 at the very end of this video, with plenty of warning if you want to bail before hearing any of them. To quickly recap the first 2 episodes, we've seen Jack Lowden's Cartwright relegated to Slough House, where disgraced MI5 agents go for penance. He's a bright but rash agent who is outspoken, impatient, but he's also very insightful and observant. Now at Slough House, Cartwright reports to Gary Oldman's Lamb, who is also very grumpy, persistently drunk, and generally just fed up with everybody. Right-wing fanatics have kidnapped a Pakistani college student and are threatening to behead him in a massive political statement. And while the untarnished MI5 agents are working to uncover the kidnapped's whereabouts, Cartwright is on the trail of a has-been right-wing journalist who he believes has intel on the kidnapping. Olivia Cooke plays another agent at Slough House, and after tailing Cartwright and then telling him that her real assignment is to watch him, she ends up getting shot in the head by a perp who broke into the journalist's house that they were surveilling. The third episode picks up immediately following that event, and I love how this whole episode plays out only in a matter of hours. There is a building urgency as the deadline for the kidnappers approaches, and then they are going to behead the victim live for all to see. Conversations are quick and curt, but also extremely witty at times. And while most of the other characters in Slough House have been in the background, 2 of them do get to have a focus for a while in this episode. Now there's a dialogue exchange during a portion of the storyline that takes place between Oldman's Lamb and Kristin Scott Thomas's Taverner. Now I was loving the power play that was on display as the 2 just volley insults and intel back and forth at each other. Now there's clearly a history between the 2, but so much hasn't been uncovered yet. And I could almost believe that they were lovers at one point in the past because of how they speak to each other. I mean, there's definitely a familiarity that's present, and it could just be from years of antagonistic interactions, but it feels more personal. Now, I'm not sure it has a massive bearing on the show, but it does niggle at the back of my head just a bit when they interact. Within this dialogue exchange, though, we get a ton of insight into Lamb's character. We see how protective he is of his team. Now, he never loses his gruffness or even his disdain for his position, but he still takes his role very seriously. He's also just so crass, and I think his give a damn is broken. I mean, it's entertaining to watch because how do you negotiate or control someone who is just fed up with authority, but also has the knowledge to be extremely dangerous to your career? This makes for a very frustrating conundrum for Kristin Scott Thomas, but fun for us as the audience. There are also some more questions and even intrigue raised about one of the members of Slough House that come about as a result of their discussion, and I just can't wait to see where it leads and what secrets are uncovered because I think it will tie heavily into Lamb and how he got placed where he is. This show continues to surprise me. There are points that are a little obvious, but even when I think I have a couple of things figured out, other surprises come to light and pop up in very unexpected ways. The tension that the show holds is still slowly building, and we can just tell that at some point very shortly, this is going to turn into a crap show for the characters. Now there's a chess game being played, but it's being played very poorly by one side, which then makes all future moves more difficult to expect and prevent. And just like with episode 2, this one ends at a crucial moment, which is so obviously frustrating, but it's also incredibly exciting. The third episode is only 42 minutes long, which is just long enough to get me terribly invested, but also so stinking short that it aggravates me when it ends. And this is one of those shows that I want to binge from start to finish because my anticipation of what is coming is super high. So overall, this episode continues to build on the intrigue and tension that the first 2 episodes created. The building urgency helps to keep the story engaging and moving quickly. Gary Oldman's Lamb is becoming more and more likable, even though he's incredibly unpleasant as a human being, which I do know is a contradiction, but I love and hate him all at the same time. I'm also really enjoying the relationship between Cartwright and Lamb. As antagonistic as it is, I think there's some real camaraderie between the 2, even if they don't know how to show it. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and some violence. I give episode 3 of Slow Horses 4.5 out of 5 couches. Alright, so here's your warning. I am going to dive into a few spoilers and then what I think they mean for the upcoming episodes. If you don't want spoilers, thanks for couching with me. So the conversation that takes place between Lamb and Taverner has so much context that we just don't have yet. Lamb has the upper hand in certain ways because Jed Moody, after accidentally shooting Sid in the head, falls down the stairs and breaks his neck, while carrying a gun that will match the bullet in Sid's head. I mean, all Lamb has to do is call the cops, and that is going to cause all kinds of trouble for Taverner. But then she pulls out that ace that's up her sleeve, and she threatens to expose Standish and re-examining her husband's death. Now, we've only seen some brief flashbacks with Standish at her home, but what if he didn't actually kill himself and it was her? I mean, regardless of what Taverner has, it's enough to worry Lamb, so he agrees to go knock on the door to alert that deep cover agent that's part of the kidnappers. I mean, and really, how messed up of a plot is that? MI5 kidnap a kid whose uncle is politically important so they can gain just a bit more credence and negotiating power. Now, I love how Lamb is the only one that sees how the whole thing is on a razor's edge of going just absolutely wonky. I've got to admit that throughout the entire first 3 episodes, I really thought Brian Vernell's Curly was an undercover agent. I wasn't sure he was MI5, but I didn't think he was actually a kidnapper who'd go along with the beheading. I love being wrong like this. I mean, the fact that Curly isn't undercover, but really just some unhinged right-wing psycho was shocking. And oh my goodness, that ending. When Curly walks away and then he swings the axe, I really did think that Hassan was the one who was done for. I never expected that Mo was going to be the one that lost his noggin. And just like Lamb predicted, the whole operation failed miserably. And I love how this is going to complicate so many issues. Plus, the kidnappers are on the run now with Hassan, and nobody knows where they're at. I think this is going to be the time where Slough House gets to prove itself, probably out of forced participation because, if they screw up, they can be disavowed and blamed and still keep MI5 relatively unscathed. So where do you think the series is going after this? I mean, any guesses? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.